Welcome to the Hidden Truth Stories channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery. The air above Blackwater Lake, nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, possessed a chilling stillness. A quiet heavy with unrecorded time settled there, and this deep, natural hush first drew Professor Alastair Finch to its shores. His life's work was sifting the dust of American history. He searched for truths the textbooks had missed. These quiet, hidden narratives belonged to solitary souls whose echoes shaped the landscape. The deepest echo was that of the Lantern Keeper. Alastair arrived in late autumn. The forests surrounding the lake blazed in a final, defiant spectacle of color: crimson, gold, and rust. A theatrical contrast against the lake's inky, perpetually dark surface. Blackwater's name came from the deep peat bogs feeding it. Waters so rich in tannins seemed to swallow the light. They offered reflections of ancient, towering pines. Alastair, a historian with an archaeologist's soul, knew that places named for nature often held the oldest secrets. Local tales, sparse and whispered among the few residents, spoke of an old structure, a small stone tower jutting from a craggy promontory on the far side. A lighthouse of sorts, yet the lake was too small for such an aid. This structure, they said, had been tended by one man for generations, a lineage stretching further than recorded land grants. Further than the first European settlers, they insisted. A man they simply called the Lantern Keeper. Alastair set up his modest camp near the lake's edge. The smell of damp earth and pine needles filled the cooling air. His equipment was minimal: a sturdy notebook, a satellite phone, and a high-resolution geological scanner. The scanner was a gift from his skeptical but supportive university department. He hoped it would pierce the shroud of myth. The first night, the silence was absolute, broken only by the crackle of his small campfire, a sound that felt almost sacrilegious in the profound quiet. As he watched the dark expanse of Blackwater, he saw it. A faint, almost shy glow emerged from the promontory across the lake, a light that wasn't white or yellow like modern lamps but a soft, antique amber. A color drawing warmth from the very fabric of the darkness itself. It pulsed gently, not like a rotating beacon but like a breathing thing, holding steady, a solitary eye watching over the sleeping lake. It was exactly as the stories had described. The light of the Lantern Keeper, now visible. The skepticism buffering his historian's mind dissolved completely. It was replaced by a surge of pure, exhilarating mystery and anticipation. The next morning, determined to confront the legend, Alastair paddled his small kayak across the black waters. The trip took longer than he expected. The cold crept relentlessly into his bones. As he approached the promontory, the geological scanner began to ping wildly, its digital reading spiking, indicating not just the visible stone tower above. It showed a vast, complex network of subterranean structures beneath it, deep below the bedrock, structures that registered as non-natural. They were meticulously crafted, ancient constructions. The tower itself was a marvel of rough-hewn, dry-stacked stone. Impossibly old, its architecture was unlike any colonial or native style he knew. It suggested a construction predating both, an architectural whisper of a truly lost civilization. He hauled the kayak ashore and scrambled up the rugged slope. He found the tower door, a heavy slab of wood with rusted iron fittings. It was unlocked, almost invitingly ajar, beckoning him onward. Inside, the air was surprisingly fresh, smelling faintly of ozone and old wax. The room was dominated by the lantern itself, the centerpiece. A magnificent, intricate mechanism of polished brass and crystal lenses. It featured a unique, continuous wick system, quite baffling. But the light source was the most astonishing detail he noted. It wasn't powered by oil or electricity, as expected. It was a gently glowing, palm-sized stone that vibrated, a translucent, milky white mineral humming with a low, almost inaudible sound. This was the source of the persistent amber light he had seen. Beside the lantern sat a man, old but physically sturdy and robust. His eyes were the color of the lake, dark, watchful, and deeply knowing immediately. A man who radiated an almost unnerving calm, a strange stillness. He was dressed in simple, rough-spun clothes, blending with the stone. He didn't look up immediately, instead tending to the stone. He polished its surface with a piece of soft cloth, a sacred ritual. When he finally spoke, his voice was a low, melodic rumble in the stillness. It carried no discernible regional accent, simply the sound of the deep forest itself. "You are Professor Finch," the man said, stating a fact, not questioning his arrival. "You have come seeking the hidden story just like others before. They always do eventually find this place." The lantern keeper introduced himself only as Elias, refusing any surname. He confirmed the unbelievable truth Alastair suspected. His family had tended this light for countless generations, tasked with a sacred, forgotten duty of care. He explained that the light and the structure beneath were not built for nautical navigation, but something deeper. They served a purpose of historical navigation, a monument to ancient truth. A truth so old, so challenging to the accepted timeline, it was deliberately obscured. Relegated to pure myth, Elias explained the deliberate obfuscation. He called the structure, simply the first light, a powerful designation. Over the next few days, Alastair remained with Elias, absorbing the gravity. Elias, seeing the sincerity and quiet reverence in the historian's eyes, began to unfold the narrative. He shared the family's oral history, a tradition passed from keeper to keeper over thousands of years. Elias explained that the structure beneath the tower was the last known node. It was the last functional part of a vast, continent-spanning network of nodes. This network was built by a civilization that thrived long before the Clovis people arrived. A highly advanced society that valued knowledge and cosmic alignment over material wealth. A society they called the Ethel, a beautifully resonant name. The Ethel, Elias recounted, possessed a profound, intuitive understanding of telluric currents. They understood the electromagnetic energy flowing through the Earth's crust completely. They used the lake's naturally high iron and mineral content to their advantage. Coupled with the unique, naturally radioactive, luminescent quartz in the lantern, the Ethel stone, they tapped energy. They used this energy to stabilize a massive subterranean grid. This grid wasn't for conventional power, but for chronology, history, structure. The Ethel were the first great historians of the continent. They constructed their network to record and preserve the exact moment-to-moment history. This history was encoded not in papyrus or stone tablets, but in the stable oscillation of the Earth's magnetic field. The Lantern Keeper's duty was to keep the Ethel stone stabilized perpetually. This prevented the immense historical record from degrading completely, or worse, being overwritten by outside interference or accident. The climactic twist, the hidden event the history books ignored, was a cataclysmic magnetic pole shift. It occurred unexpectedly over 10,000 years ago, an unimaginable event. This geophysical violence wiped out the Ethel civilization almost entirely in one stroke. Only a handful of their keepers managed to stabilize the remaining nodes in the aftermath. The Blackwater node was the most crucial, its preservation essential. The traditional historical narrative of a gradual migration across the Bering Strait was, Elias claimed, merely the aftermath. It was the arrival of new peoples into a continent stripped of its prior great culture. The historical records the Ethel stored were still down there, untouched by time. They were accessible through the stabilized Ethel stone and its link to the network. Elias led Alastair into the hidden passage below the room. A narrow, perfectly carved spiral staircase led down into the bedrock below. It was illuminated solely by the soft, inherent glow of the stone itself, a gentle guide. They descended for what felt like an eternity in the deep earth. The temperature dropped steadily, the air becoming charged with a tingling, static energy. Finally, they reached a cavern, a vast, echoing chamber of impressive scale. It was lined with smooth, obsidian-like stone, reflecting the soft glow. At the center was a colossal, crystalline platform, perfectly cut. Upon this platform rested thousands of smaller, intricately carved ethel stones. Each one hummed softly, a massive, silent library of light and truth. Elias explained that each stone held the chronological data for a specific geographical region of the ancient world. By aligning the lantern's ethel stone with the core platform, he could access the data. He could initiate a retrieval of the true, unbroken history of the land's past. He placed the lantern's stone onto a pedestal, completing the circuit. As the two sources connected, a low, resonant thrum filled the cavern, vibrating. The air before them shimmered, coalescing into a three-dimensional projection above the platform. It was a panoramic view of the ancient landscape, a stunning vista. Blackwater Lake wasn't a lake then, but a deep, fertile valley, thriving. It was dotted with elegant, geometrically perfect structures built from luminous white stone, a beautiful city. The valley was teeming with people who moved with a grace and knowledge that defied Alistair's understanding of primitive societies. The vision unfolded, showing the Ethel's mastery of astronomy and their scientific depth. Their deep spiritual connection to the land was apparent in every action. Their complex social structures were evident in their gentle interactions. And then, the terrifying moment of the magnetic shift appeared suddenly. The sky turned an impossible shade of violet, an unnatural color. The ground trembled violently, and the light structures flickered and died. The great Ethel civilization collapsed in a moment of terrible geophysical violence. The projection stopped abruptly, the light receding back into the stones below. Alistair stood in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the revelation. He realized he wasn't looking at a myth, but at a deliberate, multimillennial act of historical preservation. A hidden truth so profound it entirely reshaped the concept of American history's origins. Elias, his task of sharing complete, the secret finally shared with one who was ready, simply smiled. It was a deep, tired expression of duty completed after long service. He explained that his duty was near its end now that the truth was shared. He prophesied that the history, once acknowledged, would begin to re-emerge into the world naturally. It would be a slow, gentle seepage of forgotten truths into the consciousness of the modern age. He asked Alistair to do nothing rash, to publish nothing yet for the world. He asked him simply to hold the knowledge, to let it settle deep within him. He was to guide future research with the wisdom of the Ethel's ancient knowledge. Elias emphasized that the time for the full truth to be public was still approaching slowly, but the Keeper's light had ensured the history would not be lost forever to time. Alistair agreed completely, a solemn promise made in the deep silence of the earth. He acknowledged the immense scope of the task and the sacred trust he had been given to keep. He spent one more night by Blackwater, alone with his thoughts. He watched the lantern's amber glow across the dark water, a light that now seemed less mysterious and more like a steadfast, silent sentinel. It was eternally guarding the truth of 10 millennia in the sleeping landscape. When he awoke at dawn, Elias and the kayak were both gone. The tower door was closed, not locked, but firmly shut against the world. Alistair was left alone with the profound memory of the Ethel. He carried the heavy weight of their legacy and its deep implications. A historian reborn into a world far older and stranger than he had ever imagined or studied. He knew the greatest American history had been hiding in plain sight for all time, protected by a quiet man and his solitary, shining lantern on the edge of Blackwater Lake. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Thank you, and see you again.